Most people think that you need willpower in order to stop overeating, but what if I told you that that's not really the case? What if I told you that you don't really need willpower in order to stop overeating? As a registered dietitian, I know that it's not just about willpower in order to change our eating habits. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the 5 biggest reasons why we overeat and also how to stop it without relying on willpower. And make sure you watch until the end because the last reason is something that I've never heard anyone else talk about, and yet I feel like it's the most important thing that you can do and it's the most important reason. This is what I've learned from doing hours of research and also based on my own experience with overeating and also from working with other people as a dietitian. So according to the Cambridge Dictionary, overeating is when you eat more than your body needs, especially to the point when you get uncomfortably full. Now, I just want to clarify my stance on this because even though overeating technically it counts as like going for seconds even after you're full, I feel like in certain instances when, if you're having a Christmas meal, for example, and a special occasion, like it's okay to do that. It's only when you do it consistently all the time that it can lead to serious health problems. For instance, like if you're overeating on high sugar foods all the time, then it can lead to diabetes. Or if you're overeating to the point where you're storing fat around your organs, then that can lead to things like metabolic syndrome, heart disease, stroke, etc. Probably for most of you, it's not going to be causing such extreme consequences, but maybe it's causing you to have some stomach pain or poor digestion or sleep issues, poor sleep quality. Maybe it's also affecting your ability to interact with other people, going to social situations. Overeating has other consequences that aren't directly linked to our physical health as well, because maybe you feel controlled by food, maybe you just get anxious thinking about food all the time. And so feeling like you can't stop overeating can also take a toll on your mental health and not just your physical health. But in order to avoid these both physical and psychological consequences of overeating, we have to first understand why we do it in the first place. So one of the most important things you have to understand if you want to stop overeating is the difference between physical and non-physical hunger. Physical hunger is your body's biological system telling you that it needs food. So if your stomach starts to growl, or if you're feeling like it's empty inside, or maybe you're getting this feeling of tightness in your chest and your throat, or other signs of physical hunger are that you're getting a bit more tired, a bit sleepy, a bit irritated, or angry. So, aka hangry. Those are all signs that you are physically hungry. And one thing to note is that physical hunger tends to develop over a few hours. So, like, it slowly rises, your physical hunger slowly rises, and that's unlike non-physical hunger where it's like you can get a sudden craving, a sudden urge to eat, or like something triggers your urge to eat. Essentially, physical hunger is your body's innate desire to eat something to like give itself energy so that it can keep going, so that it can survive. Whereas non-physical hunger can be categorized into 3 different areas. So the first one is emotional hunger, the second one is situational hunger, and the third one is sensory hunger. So emotional hunger is when you get a desire to eat because of some sort of negative emotion. So that could be stress, anger, anxiety, boredom, even frustration, or maybe you're just wanting to procrastinate from something. It can also be nervousness, sadness. Yeah, there's like a few, there's like so many different things that can be classified as emotional triggers for hunger. And I kind of go into this a little bit in my mindful eating guide. So if you want to download that, it's completely free, which you can get down below. But yeah, emotional hunger is one of the biggest reasons why we overeat. And stress eating, like if you come back from a stressful day at work and you suddenly find yourself gravitating towards the kitchen, like towards the cabinet, and like opening a bag of chips or something because you're just like you just need something to like satisfy yourself. And like oftentimes when I think about emotional hunger, it's like you're using food to fill this void inside of you. Like you're using food as a comfort thing, you're using food as a coping mechanism. In order to stop doing this, you have to first ask yourself, what is the emotion that you're feeling? Like, if you ever get the desire to eat, then ask yourself, like, okay, is this, first of all, is this physical or non-physical hunger? If it's physical hunger, then go and eat. You know, you're hungry, go eat. But if it's non-physical hunger and you know that it's like some sort of emotional trigger, then ask yourself, like, what actually happened that triggered that? And like, when you can identify those, you like stop yourself and you pause and you actually realize that, like, oh, like, this is the reason why I'm getting the urge to eat. It's not because I'm actually hungry. And then sit with those feelings, accept those feelings, and like, don't use food to try to suppress it, you know, because food gives us like a dopamine hit. It like lights up the reward system in our brains. So actually, when you're feeling that negative emotion, your brain is like, I need something to like give me a positive feeling, and it uses food as like a, you know, a source for that. So you need to like stop yourself and think that, actually, is this going to be good for me? Even though it's going to give me that temporary relief from this negative emotion, it's not going to actually get rid of it completely. Like, it's still gonna be there, buried somewhere, suppressed somewhere, and that is not good, because we know that suppressed emotions always come back to haunt us. And the second type of non-physical hunger is situational hunger. So this could be like, if you're about to go out somewhere where you know that you're not going to be able to eat for a few hours, so then you're like, oh, I should just eat now so that I avoid feeling hungry later. Or maybe you're in a situation where it's somebody's birthday and there's cake, and you're like, well, it's a celebration, so I'm gonna eat this cake. I feel like situational hunger is like most of the times okay for you to give into, because like, if you have somewhere to go later, you know you're not going to be able to eat, so you want to eat first. Like, that is you taking care of yourself. That's you looking after yourself and making sure that you're not going to go hungry later, and I feel like that's completely fine. And like, when your friend is having a birthday, it's once in a year kind of thing, you want to celebrate them, and so like, yeah, just have that cake, it's fine, as long as you're aware of yourself and you know that you're not using that as an excuse to eat. Like, that's fine, just be honest with yourself, you know. And then the third type of non-physical hunger is sensory hunger. So this type of hunger can be triggered by any one of our senses. So for instance, you're walking down the street and there's a bakery somewhere nearby, and you can smell the scent of warm pastries, and you're like, oh my god, that smells so good, and it triggers your hunger. You're like, I want to eat that right now. So yeah, that is considered sensory hunger because it's triggered by smell. Or maybe you are just like scrolling on YouTube shorts or like reels, whatever, and you come across one of those like food recipe videos, and it just looks so good and it makes you hungry. Or maybe you just imagine the taste of some kind of food. You like think about this food and you're like, that sounds so good right now, and you want to eat it. Sensory hunger. So like, these are all things, it's not physical hunger because it's not like, it's triggered by something else. So yeah, how do you combat sensory hunger? I think that you just have to pay more attention to what is actually causing it. So like I mentioned about the emotional hunger thing, like, recognize what it is that's actually triggering that, and then like realize that, hey, actually, you're not physically hungry right now. You don't need to give into it. So that's the first reason why you might be overeating. It's because you give in to non-physical hunger instead of physical hunger. So the second reason why you might be overeating is actually kind of counterintuitive, but it makes complete sense. Just let me explain. So, if you're restricting your intake of foods because you are dieting for some reason, or you just like, you're trying to like eat less, you're intentionally skipping meals, you're ignoring your hunger cues, then suddenly you find yourself like overeating on certain foods, especially the ones that you put off limits. Do you know why that is? It's because your body's biology will always win. Like, you can try to suppress your cravings as much as possible. You can try to restrict your eating as much as possible, but that is going to be really, really difficult to do in order to like have sustainable weight loss if that's your goal. and it's only going to make you crave foods even more. And then when you finally do give yourself access to those foods, you're only going to overeat on them or binge on them. And not to mention, when you severely restrict yourself like that, your metabolism is actually going to slow down over time because you're giving your body less and less food, so it has to learn to survive on less and less food. And in order to do that, it has to adapt by burning less energy. So that's how your metabolism slows down when you start restricting yourself a lot, which makes it even easier for you to overeat. So that's the second reason, is that you are restricting yourself too much. So how do you stop this? Well, I know you don't want to hear this, but you have to stop dieting. And when I say this, I don't mean that you should give up all your efforts to lose weight if that is what's going to be beneficial for your health. I'm saying that you should give up the food rules that you have and be more flexible with your eating so that it can be more sustainable. Give yourself more freedom and more flexibility when it comes to your eating. Only that way you can release your attachment to food and actually start to enjoy foods more, and like you won't be placing food on a pedestal, so you won't be craving it as much anymore, and you won't overeat whenever you get access to it. So the third reason why you could be overeating is because of the nutritional quality of your diet. Your diet might be lacking in nutrients. So the typical Western diet is very nutritionally depleted because it is comprised of fast food, processed food, not so many whole foods or fruits and vegetables. There's not a lot of nutrients, and when your body, like your body can sense when it's lacking in the things that it needs. And in order to try to get more of those nutrients, it increases your appetite and it makes you want to like eat more, it makes you seek food more, and therefore leads you to overeat. Even though you're eating a lot, you're not eating the right kinds of foods. So your body is trying to compensate for that by making you get hungrier, making you crave more things. So what do you need to do in order to fix this? You need to add and not subtract. What do I mean by this? So for example, like I really freaking love the Biscoff spread, like the crunchy Biscoff spread is just so good. And so like instead of eating it straight out of the freaking jar, I will have it with apples and Greek yogurt. And so this is like the idea of adding and not taking away. So like instead of just eating that, the spread, the Biscoff spread, I'm like adding other nutrients to it. I'm adding fiber, I'm adding all the vitamins, minerals from the apple, and then I'm adding protein from the Greek yogurt and probiotics as well from the Greek yogurt. So you're adding nutrients, you're giving your body what it needs, but then you're also satisfying your cravings. And the other thing you can do to make your diet more nutritious is by planning your meals ahead of time. So for me, I like to plan my meals every Sunday. I do like a meal plan and like a meal prep. So I plan my breakfast, lunch, dinner every day, and also snacks, and like that keeps me on track because then it's like I know exactly what I'm gonna have and I prepare it. And so I don't get those times when I'm like hungry and looking for something to eat and like reaching for those quick unhealthy things. So the fourth reason why we overeat is because there is such a high availability of bliss point foods. So bliss point foods are foods that have the perfect combination or the perfect ratio of salt, sugar, and fat. So for example, like your Oreos, it's a little bit salty, even though you may not be able to taste it. It is sweet, obviously, sugar in there, and there's also a little bit of fat in there, which is in the cream and also the biscuits. So literally the entire Oreo. This like perfect ratio actually lights up the reward system in the brain even more than like normal foods do. So like if you think about salted caramel, for example, why is it so good? It's because of the combination of salt, sugar, and fat. And the reason why this happens is because of evolution, pretty much, because high salt, high sugar, and high fat foods were foods that our ancestors seeked out the most. So if you were a caveman and you got your hands on food that was either sweet, salty or fatty, then you are probably gonna survive out of like your entire tribe. You know what I mean? Like, because like something fatty is gonna be like your meat, something salty is also gonna be your meat, something sweet is gonna be like fruit. And so we've kind of evolved over time to seek out those foods. Companies spend so much money trying to get you as addicted as possible to their product. Our brain chemistry literally alters as we taste those foods. Food addiction exists, all right? This should not be news to anybody. Like, I think I read somewhere, don't quote me on this, I actually didn't do my research on this, but like I read somewhere that it could be as addictive as like hard drugs. So imagine if you were a drug addict and you walked into a supermarket and there were aisles and aisles and aisles of the drug that you're addicted to. Like, how hard would it be to avoid it? You know what I mean? And like, this is us, but with food. It's everywhere. Like, we cannot avoid it. So how do you stop this? How do you stop overeating on these kinds of foods? Allow yourself to have it, but then take a break. So I like to set a 15-minute timer usually whenever, like, after I eat something before I reach for the next thing. So for example, like after I just had my meal, I used to always want to have dessert right after my meal, like always want to have something sweet. But then I started to like set a 15-minute timer after having my meal and then like reevaluate. And once that timer runs out, use my craving tool. When you use my craving tool, it's gonna bring you more self-awareness, which is gonna give you more self-control, and this is not gonna require willpower. You don't have to force yourself to not eat the food. Like, if you want to eat the food, that's okay. That's kind of like my whole thing. Like, it's okay if you want to have it. Allow yourself to have it, but when you have it, be intentional about it. Be mindful when you're eating it. That's what really matters. And like, eventually, when you keep doing this over and over again, you're just gonna like overeat that food less and less. And now for the fifth and final most important reason why you overeat that never really gets talked about, but the most important reason I feel is because you have the wrong identity. You keep telling yourself that you are a stress eater, that you can't stop overeating, that you're doomed, that you will never be able to lose weight, you will never be able to feel in control of food, that you just love food too much, that you will never be happy in your body. These kinds of things, like you're telling yourself all of these negative things, and it's become a part of your identity that it is so hard to take action that goes against that. And the reason why I say this is like the most important point is because people don't realize that it's even something to consider, but it actually like allows you to implement all of the things that I have just discussed in this video. Like, once you change your identity, you will start taking actions that are in line with that identity. So, how do you actually change your identity? Stop telling yourself these negative things, okay? And start telling yourself what I like to call neutral affirmations. So, you know how there's those like manifestation gurus online that tell you to like do affirmations and you're going to change your identity? Well, if you're telling yourself something that is not true, that you feel like is a lie, then it's not going to be as effective because you're going to feel this like resistance within yourself where you're telling yourself one thing, but you know that it's not true. So, like, instead of telling yourself, I never overeat, tell yourself that I am capable of respecting my fullness cues. So, after you eat something, if you feel full, you are capable of respecting that. You're capable of acknowledging that and honoring it so that you're not reaching for something else even though you're full. So tell yourself, I am capable of respecting my fullness cues. And that is so true because anybody can do this. Okay, even if you think that you might not be able to do this, you are capable. Like, that is a fact. Anyone can do it. Maybe this affirmation that I've just used as an example doesn't resonate with you as much, but I encourage you to find ones that do resonate with you, that are neutral in the sense that they're not like a lie, but they're also not negative, and they're not going to do any harm for you. This is something that I have been working on myself as well, trying to change my thought patterns, trying to change my identity, and like it's making it so much easier for me to take action that lines up with the neutral affirmations that I tell myself. So the other thing I want you to do is, number one, neutral affirmations. Number two, you should do something called confirmation affirmations. So what do I mean by this? I mean, focus on your wins. Whenever you do something that you are proud of, so for example, if you are having a meal and you stop yourself from before finishing everything on your plate, like once you felt satisfied, once you felt like a little bit full and satisfied, and you know that you don't need any more food, and you are able to leave something on your plate, then you can tell yourself the confirmation affirmation that you can say, I stop eating when I feel satisfied and I don't feel the need to finish everything on my plate. So, like, reinforce that idea of yourself, and it's really, really gonna help you change your identity, change your thought patterns, change your eating behaviors, and it will become so much easier for you to continue doing those things. If you are also the kind of person who finds that you can't stop thinking about food, then you're gonna want to check out my last video on how I stop thinking about food all the time. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.